Today's video, I'm going to be taking you through all the steps that I used in building this kitchen island. I'm building the whole base with you guys. The toe kicks, which are external, they're not integral, and I'll explain to you what that means as I go along through the video. It's a series of frameless cabinets. We're going to build that in this video, and also the mitered columns, and that wraps around the whole back, and that's going to have some corbels on it and applied moldings, and you can see we have nice clean edges. The cabinets are just mocked up in place. I don't have everything leveled and screwed together yet, and that's because I still have to make the doors and the drawers, and this is coming apart and has to be taken to the client's house in pieces because it would be too heavy to carry in one piece, and also it needs to be individually leveled at the seam, and it still needs to fit through the door of the client's home. All right, so let's get started building this thing. Okay guys, so now if you're wondering why I have the mock-up of the island sitting in the other side of the portion of my basement that's not used right now for anything, it's because if you look at the state of the shop, I can't fit this in here while I'm doing any of the work. So as I build the pieces here in the shop, I move them over to the other side of the basement, which just houses my workout equipment and stuff like that. We don't use it for anything, but let's get started on moving all this stuff out of the way and building this kitchen island. I need to make columns for the corners of this island that I'm doing. I'm setting the bevel on the track saw to 45.5 degrees, so 45.5. That's going to give me the allowable tolerance for the glue so that my miters will come together and I'll have some space there for the glue to compress. And I need to mark out 181 millimeters. That's what I need the column width to be. So I'm gonna go to 181 and just make a tick mark. 181. And now I have to get this on my mark. So I basically have everything set up within my reach here. What I'm going to do is glue up the column. What I need is a spacer block here on both ends. So I'm just going to use pocket screws, and I'm going to glue and screw that in with the pocket screws, and then what's going to happen is after I have everything taped up and ready to fold up, those are going to act as my stop on all sides, keeping everything square. So this way I can nail it off and then take the tape off, let the glue set, and I'll have perfectly square columns. I'm using the STM work table as my work surface with just a sheet of plywood laid out on top of it, and that's acting as a workbench for me because I still need to cut more plywood, and if I move this out of the way and put the MFT here, then I'm going to do double work because I'm going to have to move it back later on. So what I'm going to do here is just keep everything as flush as possible. I have to make sure that the ends stay as flush as possible. I have to try to keep the seams as tight as I can so I can get the packing tape on the seams. I got a really nice tight fit with those miters that I cut. So now I'm just going to start to apply the tape. Okay, so now that that's done, we need to roll it over to the other side so that we can glue up the seams. So we're going to just try to be as gentle as possible. Pull it forward. And I'm going to kind of let it start to fold on its own. So I'm going to pull it forward. As I bring this up, I want to start to bring all the pieces up. Fold it over on itself, one little piece at a time. As you can see, it's already starting to take a perfect shape. but I need to fold it over completely, and then we'll slowly unroll it. So I'm just going to put a little dab of glue. So now you can see we have a perfectly mitered column in all corners. You can see here's the joint that I didn't have any tape on. That was the last joint that came together, and it's just absolutely perfect. So if you do this right and you use 45.5 degrees, 45.5 degrees on your saw when you bevel it, then you're going to get a perfect joint every time because it gives that glue somewhere to go. I need to start to cut the panels that are going to go in between the three columns. So what I'm going to do first is, as I always do, rip a straight edge off of the plywood because they're never straight and true. They're also always jagged on the edges, so we'll clean that up nice. Then I will cut it parallel to 880 millimeters. That's going to be the total height, or 34.5 basically. Okay, so now that I have these edges parallel, cut to the size I need, I'm going to take this true square that I have and I'm going to put it on the other side, butt it up to the track, square up that edge. So I'm square, I'm going to lock it in. Okay, so I have the long side propped up and I need to put this 3/4 back. So what I've done is cut spacer blocks of the exact material that I'm working with here, and what I'm going to do is have those on the edge and use those as a gauge so that I can get the positioning of the column. Okay, so I find the easiest way to do this on an unwieldy large piece like this is to clamp a spacer block to the end that's going to give me the exact dimension of where I need to meet this. So I'm going to put glue on it. I have one just resting at the bottom, and that's just going to give me an idea of where the range I need to be in, so that once I put the glue on and I put this together, I can leave this clamped in place. This one I can put back on the bottom for now, start to screw it together with the pocket screws, and once I have a good hold on it, then I can remove this piece temporarily and remove the bottom piece, screw that in, and then these are going to go back on and get screwed in place right over these screws. And that's not for extra support, but what that's going to do is give me the exact flush piece that I need for when I screw the cabinets in to make up the rest of this island. Just put a bead of glue. The pocket screws will give it just a little bit of strength. For the most part, they're going to be the clamping element for the glue to set. Okay, so now you're basically inside of the island with me here. So this side is going to get all cabinets and drawers. This side is going to have one cabinet with a drawer and a door, and then another row of cabinets will take off this way. Okay, so now those glue blocks that I used before to flush everything up so that I can install the cabinets later I'm just going to tack those on with some crown staples and just put a little bit of glue in there. Now, these aren't structural supports. What they are is so that when I do install the cabinets here, I can install them flush and screw them right into these blocks. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. That'll just keep them in place. Nothing crazy. Put it into position here. I can leave it away from the top so that it doesn't interfere with anything. And then just a couple of staples, using 1 1/4 inch staples. Same thing with the bottom here. I'm going to leave it a little bit off of where the floor would sit because I don't want it to interfere with the leveling process later on. I'm going to start working on the toe kicks. So I have my saw set to 0. I have my toe kick parts cut from the leftover pieces and scrap pieces and cut-offs and everything. I ripped them all down to 105 millimeters because that's going to be the height of the toe kick. Now these extra little blocks are what I call stiffeners. They're going to keep everything nice and rigid and from moving inward. So I'm just going to glue those on and tack them in with some staples. And so now you can see I have the whole toe kick assembled. This is easily moved out of the way, and we're going to drop the cabinets on it later on once we build them, but now I can get my true measurements for those cabinets, and we're going to be doing frameless cabinets. So this is now done and ready to be squared up, and what it does is when you push this into the corner like this, you just kind of get it just about where it needs to be, and it squares itself up. So once you push it in, because of the measurements, the way I did it, and everything is exact, I was able to just, no matter how many times I move this toe kick out, once I get it against one side and push it into diagonally into the corner that way, it just squares itself up every time. And what I did was make it so that it's 100 millimeters back from the edge of this column and also 100 millimeters back from the edge of that column. And that what that is your toe kick. So now the cabinets, this is an external toe kick, so instead of having an integral one where you would cut it into the side panel, I now can make the cabinets 610 millimeters, which will come out to here and give me a 24-inch base cabinet. Okay, so I'll have the MFT set back up because now I'm going to start to cross-cut the height of the side of the boxes. I need 775 millimeters, and that's going to be 3 pieces per sheet that I've cut. So I have some pre-glued iron-on edge banding here. I have the iron all heated up, and now I need to edge band all my parts before they go together because it's not going to be easy to do once the cabinets are actually put together. So you're better off doing it this way, and I need to edge band just the base that's going to be showing because these are going to be frameless cabinets. So sticking that down, I'm going to be using the Vaxis, so if you hear a little vacuum sound in the background, that's the vacuum pump working. So I'm going to do, tilt this up towards me so that I have a comfortable surface where I can work straight up and down. So what you want to do is just measure out by just pulling a piece. You want it a little past each end, and then I'm just going to take it to the edge here, and I'm going to just bend it, and it breaks right apart. And then what I'll do is I'll just put it right here like this, where I want it. Take my iron that's already hot, and I have it on the cotton setting. And then you just want to work it in, heat up that glue. Don't stay too long in one spot because you'll make a burn mark in the veneer on the edge banding. You just want to make sure that you heat it up enough where it's going to stick. You want to activate all that glue. And then what I like to do is I like to roll the edges a little bit here. Roll the edges, that gives me good adhesion on the sides. Let's go back over it real quick like this. And then you can just take any block of wood and just burnish it in just like that so that you really get good adhesion. Your piece, put it on a flat surface, and then these parts right here, you can either take a chisel and you can just chop at them, or you can take a razor blade, straight razor, or even a sheetrock knife, and just score it along that veneer line right there. And when you bend it up, it will just break completely flush with that edge, and then we can trim it later with the edge banding attachment on the router. My frameless cabinet here, you can see I got the grooves lining up just like I did with the boxes on the cabinets that had frames. This is much the same, putting a box together for a frameless cabinet as it is for a framed cabinet. You just gotta get everything perfectly lined up so that you don't have anything that's not flush, because you're not going to have a face frame to cover it up, any mistakes that you may make. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue. I'm not going to go crazy with the glue, just enough. This is going to get staples to hold it in place, and then it's going to get screws. So I'm just going to make sure my grooves are lined up, everything is flush here, and you can see I'm using those bench dogs on the back, and I'm going to line up. The most important part is that my face of the cabinet is flush. While I have it in place, I'm going to be using these GRK screws. They're 1.5 inches long, and they have these kind of like rivets on the end, almost like a countersink drill bit has. And so that skips a whole step. I've showed you this before. These actually, they countersink themselves. So I'm going to just drive these in while I have it in position here. And that actually skips a whole step of me having to drill and countersink, so it saves me a lot of time. So this is a bit of a long run here, but since I have the staples also, I'm just going to put 3 screws. Countersink them. You got to remember these are going to be butted up against another cabinet, so you don't want any screw heads protruding, because that would interfere with it. Pull it forward. So now that I have the front spanner or stretcher in place, I'm going to turn the cabinet upside down on its top so that it's now upside down. We're going to be putting in a divider for the drawers. But instead of trying to freehand this and using measurements and marking, what I've done is cut 150mm spacer blocks. And make sure when you cut your spacer blocks, you're using a stop block so you know they're exactly the same size. I'm just going to put those in just like that, and then what's going to happen is those are going to act as my base or my support when I'm putting this in. So I'm just going to first put a little bit of glue on the edges. What I'm going to do is now put this in a little bit of an angle here like this, and I'm going to push a little bit out like that so I can fit it in place. Turn it towards me, and I'm just going to put a couple of staples and then some screws. Now keep in mind that this is going to be butted up against other cabinets, so you're never going to see these staples or screws. Okay, and now you can see I have the island set up in the other side of my basement because I don't have enough room in the shop to set it up like this. So I'm just doing dry fit here, and once I get this in place, then I can start to measure and cut for the backs. And then we can bring it back here like this. All right, everybody, I hope you guys got a lot of information in this video. There was a lot in there. I'm trying to cut this down into a series because there's just too much information and too much video footage to do all at one time. So what I'm doing is in this video here, we tackle the cabinet, the toe kick base, and the mitered columns and the side of the carcass that wraps around and everything, how it's attached. In the next video, I'm going to be working on the doors, the drawers, and then there's going to be corbels installed on those side columns. There's going to be applied moldings, there's going to be bases, and then for the actual final part of the series, we're going to do the installation at the client's home, and that's going to entail bringing the pieces in and leveling the pieces, you know, individually, and then attaching everything, and then installing all the doors back on it, and showing you how everything works and how it looks and fits in the space. Okay, so make sure you guys join me for the next series of videos in this. I hope you guys learned something. Definitely hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That's a little picture of a bell there on the side of the screen somewhere. That's going to notify you every time I upload a new video. And also give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, if you got some good information out of it. And I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to check the description box below for the links for the tools that I use. All right, guys, I'll see you next time right here in the shop.